Hello, I'm Joe from Auburn Jam Music, and we've got a new video to show you today. Hopefully something you'll find quite interesting. I found it very interesting. Basically, what's going on is that recently I got a new phone by HTC, the HTC Sensation. It's a very nice phone, and it came with some very nice free headphones. Free headphones are always a good thing. And these ones retail at about £80, so that's quite exciting. They are by iBeats, by Dr Dre, and they're supposed to be really good. A lot of people on the internet really love them. A lot of people on the internet seem to hate them quite a lot. So I thought we'd do some tests, have a listening experience and see how they fared up. Dr Dre really loves them. He made them apparently. And he says about them that people are going to hear what the artists hear and listen to the music the way they should, the way I do, which is a bold claim. And if that was true, if we were listening for sort of studio quality sound, what we'd need is a really flat response from the headphones. So the bass, the mid-range and the treble would all be really clear, sort of equal in level, and there'd be lots of clarity and detail to the sound. Interesting to see if that's going to be the case. So we thought we'd compare them to a couple of other in-ear headphones, similar sort of thing. These are my Ultimate Ears, which we also listen to some music on. They are very nice. They retailed at about £120, but I got them 4 years ago, and they're discontinued now. But Ultimate Ears still make very similar things. So you can get hold of those. And we also compared them to these Philips headphones, which are sort of standard in-ear fare, costing about £15. They look like this, if you can see. And they're what my wife uses to listen to music to pretty much every day. And yeah. So that's what we got. We thought we'd listen to a bunch of different music, compare them, maybe do a couple of fairly unscientific tests, but see what we could figure out and let you know what we think. So we listened to a few different bits. We started with a track by Dave Matthews called Stand Up, which I think is a great track for listening to because it's so well produced. The vocals are really nicely compressed, they're not annoying, they don't distort, but they have a full range of frequencies to them. The snare drum sounds fantastic, it's got a lot of weight, but it's got a lot of treble as well. The kick is really beefy and the bass line is quite complicated, so you need some detail to get out of that. That was a kind of rocky track. We listened to a Basement Jaxx tune called Do Your Thing, which is much dancier. It has a lot of layers going on. It's got a piano riff in the middle of it that's kind of hidden a bit in the mid-range, but you should be able to hear all of that detail going on as well. And we also listened to some Pendulum for some more sort of dancey music. With a really heavy drum and bass beat to see how that fared. And lastly, we listened to some Dr Dre, because that seemed fair. The first three tracks we listened to at CD lossless quality, and the Dr Dre we listened to through YouTube as an MP3 not so good quality tune to see how that all compared. And here is basically what we found. The iBeats headphones have tons of bass response, just tons. It's like the first time you put them on you're going, what is happening here? And it's quite a strange sensation because there's so much bass, but you're only feeling it in your ears. And normally if you're in a club or something like that, you feel a lot of the bass in your chest and through your whole body. And that's not happening, which is just really odd. The bass is really oppressive. It means that it sort of clouds all the other sounds that are going on. It all becomes a bit blurry and it's just really hard to enjoy the music. There's very little treble response, especially what I would call presence around the sort of 2 to 5 kilohertz area. So vocals don't sound very exciting, but cymbals and things do sort of come through over the top in a splashy sort of way. Which is all a bit odd, and I have to say I didn't really like it. On the Dave Matthews tune in particular, it's just a lot of woolly bass at the bottom. You can't really distinguish the individual notes that are going on, which is pretty horrible. And I have to say, for £80, if I paid £80 for them, I'd be really quite disappointed, and I don't think they do the job that it says that they should do. Comparing them to the Ultimate Ears was completely different. The Ultimate Ears have a very smooth frequency response. Suddenly you could hear all the presence of the vocals, the bass was clear. Maybe a little bit on the quiet side at times, but that may have to do with the tips. These have rubber tips, and the Ultimate Ears I'm using foam tips, which maybe don't get quite such a good seal, and that means that the bass response drops slightly. But it was punchy, it was there, and it was really clear. The presence at the top was beautiful, there's a sparkle, and there's nothing annoying or irritating about listening to them at all. Everything comes through, there's tons of detail. That piano riff in the Basement Jaxx tune was really clear, you could hear all the harmonic content of it, unlike on the iBeats. Then listening to the Philips headphones was different again. These had a really nice bass response actually. It wasn't oppressive like the Beats headphones, but it was really there and it was quite fun. They were a little bit tinny and harsh, and the top end tended to be a bit papery and thin, so while it had loads more treble than the Beats headphones, it was a little bit sort of washy, and the vocals sounded a bit without any presence, without any weight behind them at all, which for £15 I think is really quite good. And honestly, if I had to choose between this £80 pair of headphones and this 15 ones, I would go for the 15s every time. They're so much nicer. Of course the Ultimate Ears are a better option, but we'll talk about a bit more about that in a minute. The last track that we listened to was some Dr Dre music, and being perfectly honest, it did sound better through the Dr Dre headphones. That's mostly because of the style of music, I think. The bass was there, it was quite exciting, it was quite fun, and the vocals cut through, but there isn't a lot of detail and clarity needed. It was also interesting that you couldn't notice any of the MP3-ness of the YouTube video. It was all just, it sounded okay, whereas in the Ultimate Ears you could really hear all those artifacts and hear that it wasn't the highest quality audio in the world. So if you're going to listen to Dr Dre through YouTube and low quality MP3s, then fine, buy a pair of these, but beyond that I can't see much use for them. So we tried to be slightly more scientific and have a look at some tests that we could do with them. Very briefly, what I did was played some white noise through the headphones and a sine wave sweep from 1 Hz all the way up to 20 Hz. We recorded the output of one of the earbuds very close to a Rode NT2 microphone. Now, obviously, the characteristics of the microphone come into play in this test, so the individual results on their own don't really mean anything, but we can draw comparisons between the 3 headphones and what they look like. Okay, so here's the results of the sine wave sweep, and the first thing we can see is there's this sort of bulge on all of them just here. That's just because of the shape of the frequency response of the microphone, so we're going to ignore that. The main differences we can see are that on the Ultimate Ears pair, there's this lovely smooth growth. There's a lot of area around here, but there's no big peaks, unlike in the Philips pair at the bottom. And this is a sort of boxy mid-ranginess that we can hear. And then here is all the harshness that we get on those Philips headphones. That's not very nice. Whereas the Ultimate Ears are the smoothest shape overall. They've got a good amount of presence in this area, but nothing too horrible. And a bit of a presence peak in what's quite a flattering place. Whereas the Beats headphones have what looks to be a fairly flat response in the middle, but it's really lacking in any depth in this area. And also, we've got this weird peak up here, which is really high frequencies, and that's what I talked about with the cymbals sort of splashing through over the top, but without having any presence or sibilance in the vocals in this area. The other test, which was our white noise test, these are the results of this, and on this what we can see is that there's a real hole in the Beats headphones in this area, and again that's that mid-range where it's just not getting enough energy through. On the Ultimate Ears it's nice and smooth, we've got a really good frequency response throughout, and on the Philips headphones it's lacking, again, there's a bit of a hole here, the mid-range is a bit missing, and it's this area here where we've got too much harshness going on, and where the Beats headphones just have another hole again with not enough information. Okay, so following all of that, I really have to conclude that these aren't worth spending the £80 on. And furthermore, it just feels like a marketing ploy. It feels like Dr. Dre has put his name to something and that means we're all going to go, oh, it's really good. And I have to say, I really don't like them very much at all. The other problem is, if you spend £80 on a pair of headphones like this, before too long, the cable's going to go, something's going to break, and your 80 quid will be gone. You'll have to go out and buy another pair of headphones, which is true of all headphones. So I know quite a lot of people who go out and buy pairs like this for about £15 every couple of months or so. When the cable breaks, go and get another pair. This is fine, and one way of doing it for sure, and I would personally rather do that than the £80 option. However, I bought these 4 years ago, spent £120, and since then, when the cable has broken, and it has, I've just been able to buy a replacement one. I can buy replacement tips, and what that means is I've got really great quality earphones, and over the course of 4 years, I've spent a total of maybe £150 on them, which is as much as buying a pair of £15 headphones every couple of months, and they sound so much nicer. So if that's an option for you, and you find yourself keep buying lots of in-ear headphones, do this, it's amazing. My last piece of advice would be put all your music on whatever it is you listen to in lossless audio quality. That's really easy to do in whatever you listen. And if you've got headphones that can give you that detail, if you're spending money on getting a great pair of headphones, then don't listen to rubbishy MP3s, because they don't sound as good. Maybe another time I'll demonstrate that for you and show you the difference. Thanks very much.